name is Julie Scott, and I am the executive director and farmer here at Slough Farm Foundation. And we are a nonprofit organization that is a working farm, but uses the farm to educate about all sorts of things, from arts and health and wellness, cultural gatherings, movement, yoga, dance, kids programs, adult programs, culinary, and ceramics, woodworking, all sorts of things. And the products that we produce on the farm, vegetables, meat, eggs, poultry, we donate to people who are in need here on the island. So that could be schools, food pantries, senior centers, Boys and Girls Club, the homeless shelter, and we have a prepared meals program which uses sometimes local food to produce meals that people can then take to their home and have a good meal if they're not able to cook. When I'm not here at Slough Farm, I am the vice president of the Agricultural Society, which is a 168-year-old organization here on the island that is meant to support farmers, and that looks a whole bunch of different ways depending on what year it is or what season it is. And so I also really get excited about working together with other farmers, not duplicating efforts, working together, whether it's to bring animals to slaughter, to pick up meat, to buy food, co-op orders, supplying straw, help with labor, really whatever is needed, and also encouraging the other farmers to do the same. When I first moved here about 16 years ago, there were 3 different veterinarians or 3 different veterinary practices, sometimes with multiple doctors, that would come out to see farm animals or just come out to do farm calls at all, or would see animals if you brought them to them. There was a network of all of them being on call. They rotated who was on call, and there was always someone on call for large animals and someone on call for small animals. Sometimes it would be the same practice. And as the years have gone by, that's been less and less. Right now, there are, just specifically speaking for large animals, there are 3 vets that will see large animals. One of them works very minimal hours and is not available after any after-hour time. One of which does have an ambulatory practice that he will go, but is honest about the amount of practice that he does with large animals, but is still always willing to come help, which is great, but does have a full caseload of small animals as well. And the third one's practice has gotten so busy that to leave the clinic is really almost impossible unless it's on the lunch break, which they often don't get, as I can say from working there for 3 years. So yeah, we've lost a lot of veterinarians to retiring, minimizing their hours. There's no longer anyone on call ever for large animals as far as I know. They actually give people my phone number when somebody calls with a large animal, and they keep even sending horse people to me, which I have to, regretfully say I'm really sorry. That is just not my comfort level or skill. So yeah, we've really had to kind of work together to realize the skills that we know, to do the best we can here on site. The farming community on Martha's Vineyard is pretty special. It's really, it's become, for me, feel like something that feels close-knit. It was actually really hard to infiltrate when I first moved here as a 22-year-old woman who had lots of big ideas and a lot of energy. The farmer world was a lot older. It's a lot of people who the farms have been in their families for a long time. They've been doing what they've been doing for a long time, not a lot of interest in diversifying, had a lot of success at what they did, sometimes because of the seasonality here of the influx of people that came in the summer, the popularity of the farmers market, and also having really great products that people wanted. And eventually over time, through offering to do sometimes ridiculous things for people with nothing, wanting nothing in exchange, whether it was picking up somebody's meat or helping, run around for an entire day to catch a loose bull, whatever it was, kind of showed people that, I am excited about being part of the farming community, and I'm here to stay, and I want us all to work together and succeed. So now, you know, a lot of them have voiced to me that it also showed them that they should do the same thing, and we all, I feel like, have a really good relationship. This is more specific to the livestock farmers, it's just the world I'm in, but also, you know, connect all the farmers. We have an email list that we can send to each other, ask each other questions. We have farmer gatherings where they're all invited to. We invite all the summer farm workers to come together to meet each other and learn from each other. And then of course do like skill building classes. So I think the farming community is pretty special for a place that a lot of people don't know even has agriculture at all. So you kind of need each other when you live on a place 8 miles out in the middle of the ocean with minimal resources. So sometimes I get called to go to these things, or these people that want help with something, and sometimes they actually get kind of annoyed by all the questions that I'm asking. Things like, what's its temperature? Do you know how to take its temperature? You know, has it pooped? Does it have diarrhea? You know, going through all these questions, and there's this expectation that like, well, how is this like that I'm just gonna know how to help their animal just because I'm the one they were told to call? And so there's like this interesting level of frustration that happens from somebody when I'm trying to get all of the information, because I'm going to have to leave my life and my job or my kids or my day off or whatever, dinner, to go and help somebody. So I really try and get the whole story first, and it's really interesting sometimes how the people I don't know as well, it's never the production farmers like responds to what I need to know. But yeah, I am always willing to go out and try and help, but I am very outspoken that I'm just doing the best that I can with what I know. And it's really nice that some people have followed suit. You know, there's other people who work here, other people who are farmers. It tends to be the young women that are willing to jump in and help, and not that others, that's just who it is that's on our little squad who comes out and helps, because, you know, we really want the animals to get help. And that's sometimes we're their only hope, even if we know very little.
Your Obi-Wan. Julie and I had kind of been following each other's careers on Instagram, and we had this very casual, sort of just like, hey, awesome, I see what you do, super cool kind of dialogue that had been going on, quite honestly, for probably about 5 years. And that would bring us to, let's say, like the fall of 2022. And Julie had reached out to me and said, we'd love to get you to come to the island for a weekend. We do an event every year called February. It's all about ewes and sheep, and we want you to come do like a 2.5-day workshop, like an all-inclusive, very intensive, extremely thorough, hands-on and lecture style, sort of like crash course in basic sheep health. So from probably like fall of 2022 until like early months of 2023, she and I had been going back and forth planning the various logistics of this. And I knew that there was some shortage of veterinary access for livestock on the island, but I didn't really know how bad the problem was. But in the process of planning this workshop with her, she would start to give me more details on, you know, how more challenging it was getting and how the obstacles kind of seemed to increase every year. And meanwhile, in my life, I kind of suddenly hit this spot of like unexpected career turbulence, and I had a lot of things going on personally. There was just sort of like a big upheaval and reshuffling of my life. And I was in a spot where I was kind of desperately and quickly trying to figure out how to diversify myself and how to market myself and how to really get creative on what else I could do to basically make me into a business in different ways that I had never thought of before. And one of the things that I had felt like was lacking for me in the previous couple years of my career was that I loved to speak and I loved to teach. So moving forward with me trying to kind of root out these various avenues of things for me to do, I knew that I wanted to prioritize and put first client education, producer education, consulting for other veterinarians, and any sort of speaking role so that I could really put that mission front and center. Suddenly we ended up in this spot where we would touch base and Julie would be saying, well, here's yet another hurdle with access to veterinary care. And I'd be saying, well, here I am. I'm a food animal practitioner. And is it even possible for me to come help? By the time I actually got there to give the workshop, we'd already had these discussions. I made sure that I renewed my Massachusetts license, but I had to start by getting to know the farmers and seeing if they would even be interested in my services. It was going to have to be an extremely bilateral effort with open cooperation coming from my side and from the community. At that point, I had a newborn, an 18-month-old, and a 4.5-year-old. If I was going to travel about 4 hours by car, 45 minutes by ferry, it made sense that I'd have to be there for several days, up to maybe even a week. And in order for me to leave my children like that, a lot of things would have to fall into place at home. My husband is more than capable of taking on the 3 of them by himself, but my kids are not simple. They have a lot going on in multiple ways, and they do require a little bit more than you'd expect. For me to leave them for that amount of time is very stressful. It's hard on me. It's even harder for the kids. And to make it less of an impact, I would need to make sure I could line up and pay for extra support at home while I was away. And when I was at that first workshop, I would explain this to farmers when they would ask what would it take for me to come up there regularly and run farm calls. And we ended up kind of finding our way towards some more creative and out-of-the-box answers. By the time I left that first workshop, I had 12 prospective clients. I went home and I calculated the cost of what it takes to go there for a week. Extra childcare at home, groceries on the island, lodging, gas, drive time, maintaining licensure and accreditation in that state, insurance, and so on. Aside from the fees associated with whatever services would be requested from me, that sum is something that I realized unfortunately would have to be paid up front. The only way this would work is if every time I go up there, the schedule becomes set ahead of time and the clients on the schedule for that trip agree to split that sum up amongst themselves and pay it prior to travel. I ended up calling it a travel deposit, and that's what gets me there. Once I'm there, it becomes your average farm call invoice, which consists of a farm call fee, service time, and dispensable items. That's how we got started, and with every trip there, the client list has grown. Every time I go up there, it needs to be a bit longer of a trip than it was before. When I'm there, I will typically work farm calls for about 10 to 12 hours, and then I'll go back to wherever I'm staying and spend a few hours packaging labs, entering records, writing health plans, and doing administrative work. Now, the issue of what happens when I'm not around is something we can't gloss over. No one is having an emergency during their regularly scheduled farm call the 4 times a year that I'm there. Everyone's emergencies happen when I'm off the island. I do offer strong telemedicine support to my established clients, but I have to make sure I'm doing so in the way that Massachusetts says it must be done. My way of enacting that is to be present on your farm a few times a year, and I have to feel confident that you and I communicate well enough. If I have to give you instructions over the phone on how to administer a medication, how to deliver a baby, I need to feel confident that you're going to implement my directions. Clients do frequently take me up on this service, and I'm often pleasantly relieved and surprised by what we can actually accomplish over the phone, especially because of the way this island's farmers cooperate with each other, lend each other equipment, and they're always there with extra manpower. Another way to maintain my due diligence there is to offer a lot of educational support and technical training. And before anyone gets upset, no, I'm not teaching people how to do C-sections. I'm saying that I'm teaching my clients how to upgrade and modernize their castration and dehorning protocols, how to use pasture health and nutrition to combat parasites, how to deliver a difficult baby in the most atraumatic way possible, and the proper way to euthanize by gunshot. Every farm is operating on a different level of experience and on a different budget, but I try to meet everyone where they're at, round out their knowledge, add some new skills, tweak their protocols, help them co-op equipment and stay connected with their neighbors. I mean, these are all the different things we can do to sort of elevate what's possible in an urgent or emergency situation. Realistically, there could be a large gap between the wellness appointment and an emergency that proceeds to end of life, but we are starting to chip away at what we can do in that gap, all the while staying inside the confines of what's appropriate for farmers to do and what would be fair for the animal. Last but not least, the most important thing for me to prioritize when I'm servicing an area that I don't reside in is the handling of prescription medications and dispensing medications. This is especially crucial in the food animal world because these drugs are regulated in a specific way to avoid resulting in residues of those drugs in commodities like meat or milk. I have to make sure that if I'm leaving prescription medication in the hands of my client and my client is consuming their eggs, for example, or publicly selling their eggs or other products, that they understand how to use it in an appropriate way. I can't leave medications with people if I have doubts that they can use it responsibly, so when I'm physically on someone's farm and I'm getting ready to leave them with something, we will talk about the parameters of that drug. Every medication gets dispensed with instructions specific to that farm and to that individual animal, and no medication is dispensed in a volume that exceeds what would reasonably be used, for example, for 1 to 2 emergencies. I do expect a phone call prior to use of all drugs, but especially with antibiotics, so that I can help them decide if that's the right time and place to use that thing. All of the boring logistics and complications aside, this has been a really cool project. It's been inspiring in so many ways. Julie and I have kind of been tackling any sort of logistical snag as it comes up, and I think together what realistically we are doing is finding active solutions to the problem of the disappearing farm vet. Because this is not just a problem on Martha's Vineyard, it's a problem everywhere. And farm vets are really high in demand and very few and far in between. And I think she and I are, to the best of our resources and capabilities as 2 young women with little kids, finding our way through that in a combined way for an insular community. And we are making it work. And it's, number 1, been effective, but number 2, it's been so much fun. I mean, I am so grateful and so surprised that this is where my career took me. But it's just been so cool to work on. Everyone on the island's been awesome. Yeah, and every time I go there, I just can't wait to be back. You know, like every time I'm on the ferry there, I just get so excited. And every time I leave, I just get so sad. But yeah, I really do love working on Martha's Vineyard. And if anyone else wanted to come over there, any other vets, any other CVTs, I would be so happy to mentor, to train, to assist you, to learn with you, from you, you know, whatever. I mean, we need as many people over there as we can get, and that goes for a lot of regions. But I think to see this project grow to encompass more personnel would be super cool.